She says, today's decision to grant former presidents criminal immunity reshapes the institution of the presidency. It makes a mockery of the principle, foundational to our Constitution and system of government, that no man is above the law. Relying on little more than its own misguided wisdom about the need for bold and unhesitating action by the president, the court gives former President Trump all the immunity he asked for and more. Now, that's not even true. Trump asked for immunity for everything. If that were true...
That's not true. Trump did not ask for immunity for everything. They said that he couldn't be prosecuted for some things without being impeached and convicted by the Senate first. That's what the ask was. The ask was, hold on, if you want to charge my client with a crime, you need to impeach him first. He didn't ask for permanent immunity from everything. Even Trump's counsel didn't ask for that.
They would not have remanded multiple of these charges back to Chutkin, who is presumably going to uphold the charges. President Trump, all the immunity he asked for and more. Now, that's not even true. Trump asked for immunity for everything. If that were true, they would not have remanded multiple of these charges back to Chutkin, who is presumably going to uphold the charges.
What do you mean uphold? They didn't remand the charges back to him to uphold the charges. They remanded them back to him for him to do a fact analysis, because there's been new categories of immunity created by the Supreme Court that have never been created before. And now we need to do a factual analysis to try to figure out how these even fit into our new paradigm of what a president can or cannot be held criminally liable for.
So that's just a lie, right off the bat. Okay, she continues. The court effectively creates a law-free zone around the president, upsetting the status quo that has existed since the founding. Really? How many criminal prosecutions of the president have we had since the founding? 0.
Yeah, but why is that? Maybe that's because presidents are, one, exceptional characters. We haven't had that many presidents, okay? To be the president of the United States is pretty exceptional. And two, maybe because presidents generally don't think they can get away with committing crimes, so they don't commit crimes while they're in office.
Founding. This new official acts immunity now lies like a loaded weapon for any president that wishes to place his own interest, his own political survival, or his own financial gain above the interests of the nation. The President of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world, says Sotomayor. When he uses his official powers in any way, under the majority's reasoning, he will now be insulated from criminal prosecution. That's not even true. If he uses his powers in improper ways that are outside of his core official position, then a presumptive immunity can be overcome, as I've now...
Wrong. If it is a conclusive and preclusive power that is a core, it can never be questioned. Doesn't matter how he uses it. That's what absolute immunity is. As soon as you start saying, well, it depends, that's not absolute anymore. So she's talking about the definition for the absolutely immune acts, and those are not questionable regardless of how you use them.
From criminal prosecution. That's not even true. If he uses his powers in improper ways that are outside of his core official position, then a presumptive immunity can be overcome, as I've now explained about 4 times on the show. But since she apparently...
Presumptive immunity is only if it falls outside of those conclusive and preclusive powers. That's the only time this presumptive immunity applies. Otherwise, it's absolute immunity.
Apparently cannot read. Here's what she comes up with, Sotomayor. And this is nuts. Okay, this is just nutso, bizarro world, straight from the asylum crap. Here she goes. Orders the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Immune. Organizes a military coup.
He skipped over all of her opinion just to go to the he read her intro, which is going to have the most charged language, by the way, because that's what you do. You're the dissent, and so in the beginning, of course, you're going to write, this is a sham. That's what you do. And then you make all of your arguments, of which she did, and now you've got like your final paragraph where she talks about, well, these are the bad things that could happen. He basically read her opening and her ending. He didn't deal with any of the arguments in the middle, really?
To hold on to power? Immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon? Immune. Immune, immune, immune. Let the president violate the law. Let him exploit the trappings of his office for personal gain. Let him use his official power for evil ends. Because if he knew that he might one day face liability for breaking the law, he might not be as bold and fearless as we would like him to be. That is the majority's message today. That is, like, every element of that is false. Every element of that is false. Orders Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Okay, so the president has a conference. Let's take this to its logical conclusion.
Okay, let's
Using
do this.
the model
Yes.
that we have set up under the Supreme Court majority.
Yes.
The president does speak to the military. The military does control SEAL Team 6. So that, in and of itself, is inside the official act. However,
Correct.
The president ordering them to do something blatantly illegal, like murder his political opponent, prosecution of that crime would certainly overcome any presumptive immunity the president has in ordering his political rival to be killed.
He doesn't understand the ruling. Did Harvard stop teaching lawyers how to read law? He's making this mistake, and it was the same one that Connor was making. He's making the mistake that to overcome the presumptive immunity, you have to show that the action was really bad. Let's say that the president orders a thing to execute his opponent or assassinate his opponent, well, we can overcome the presumptive immunity because it's really bad. That's not the test. The test for overcoming presumptive immunity has nothing to do with how bad the act is. The test has to do with, if you are allowed to probe on this, will it impede the executive at any way from functioning in the future? That's the test. Nowhere does Roberts say, well, if he does a really bad thing, then fine, you can... Then we can hold him criminally liable. That is not the test. Any actions taken under the official acts are granted presumptive immunity in order to protect the president's ability to execute the duties of his office fearlessly and fairly. This means that the burden is on, quote, the government to argue that applying a criminal prohibition to that act would pose no dangers of intrusion on the authority and function of the executive branch, end quote. Nowhere does Roberts ever suggest that if the action is really bad, then you can criminally prosecute. That is not the case.
No, the president ordering them to do something blatantly illegal, like murder his political opponent? Prosecution of that crime would certainly overcome any presumptive immunity the president has in ordering his political rival to be killed.
Why? There is why? How? In what way? How does that overcome the presumptive immunity? What do you think it means to overcome the presumptive immunity? Sorry.
In fact, if the president were not, in fact, criminally indicted for ordering his political rival to be killed, then that would threaten the constitutional order.
Whoa! Yes! Yes! Holy shit! He unintentionally stumbled upon the incredibly important countervailing interest that Roberts never addresses. That is true. Having a president that could infinitely commit crimes would threaten the constitutional order. Correct! Yes!
Criminally indicted for ordering his political...
I think hold on. I think somebody should bring this up. I think Roberts might even explicitly say, this is Sotomayor dissenting. Is it legality? Roberts might have even said explicitly that the legality of an action can't even be, it's not even relevant. I'm trying to remember if he said that explicitly or not. Nor may courts, oh, here we are. Sorry. Thank you. Oh, fuck, this is what I think I was remembering. Okay. Nor may courts deem an action unofficial merely because it allegedly violates a generally applicable law. For instance, when Fitzgerald contended that his dismissal violated various congressional statutes and thus rendered his discharge outside the perimeter of Nixon's duties, we rejected that contention. Otherwise, presidents would be subject to trial on every allegation that an action was unlawful, depriving immunity of its intended effect. So no, just because you're saying that an action might allegedly violate a generally applicable law, that doesn't mean that you can all of a sudden make that action unofficial. The test has nothing to do with the legality of the action. The test has to do with imposing an undue burden on the executive and hurting the executive's ability to do its job. That's what the test is. You will not hear Ben Shapiro reference at any point Roberts saying anything along the lines of, oh, well, if the action is mega illegal or horribly illegal, then it's not an official action. That's not part of the test at all.
Political opponent? Prosecution of that crime would certainly overcome any presumptive immunity the president has in ordering his political rival to be killed. In fact, if the president were not, in fact, criminally indicted for ordering his political rival to be killed, then that would threaten the constitutional order.
Yeah.
Obviously and clearly. Again, Joe Biden doesn't even believe this. Nobody believes this. If they believed this, Joe Biden would have put out the hit on Donald Trump yesterday. He already authorized his DOJ to try and jail his political opponent. Notice the reversal that's taking place. Joe Biden's DOJ is trying to jail his political opponent in an election he is losing. And now his suggestion is that if his opponent wins office, then somehow Joe Biden's going to be driving down the street and Donald Trump's going to hit him with a drone. It's so ridiculous. I'm sorry, this is ridiculous garbage.
I don't know how any of these things related at all. I don't know what any part of this, I don't know how those two things remotely relate to anything.
Opponent in an election he is losing. Notice the reversal that's taking place. Joe Biden's DOJ is trying to jail his political opponent in an election he is losing. And now his suggestion is that if his opponent wins office, then somehow Joe Biden's going to be driving down the street and Donald Trump's going to hit him with a drone. It's so ridiculous. I'm sorry.
I don't understand the comparison at all. Yeah, the DOJ is free to investigate things as they wish and pursue charges and everything through the federal court systems as they wish. Yeah, they are doing that. I don't know what this has to do with anything whatsoever. How does that relate to anything we're talking about? Or how does it relate to any of the expansion of executive criminal immunity now? I say expansion. I should say the fabrication of the creation of, yeah.